All right, good morning. It's 8 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so the material for this week is really just about if-else statements and switch. There's some other things in there about precedents and things like that, which really we covered precedents in last week's video. But all of the things discussed in this week's material is about if-else statements and a switch, which a switch is just you can think of it like a specialized kind of if statement. So what do if statements do for us? If statements allow us to conditionally execute code or not execute code, meaning we will determine if some calculation or some kind of comparison, is that comparison or calculation true or is it false? If it's true, then we want to execute some code. If it is false, then we will just skip over and not execute that piece of code. All right, so let's start taking a look at what that looks like, and we'll make a few simple examples. This is what an if statement looks like. In pseudocode, it's if something is true, execute this code. Execute this code too. Also, have that over so it looks nicer. Also execute this, etc., etc., etc. And then we finish it with a closing brace. That's kind of what the format of an if statement looks like. Oops, let me have my other parentheses there. There we go. So we're going to say if, and then inside the parentheses, we're going to say if whatever in here is true, then we want to execute all of this code. And the code we want to execute, it can start with this opening bracket. Let me see if I can zoom in. It's not letting me zoom in. It should be clear enough. It starts with this opening bracket and this closing bracket, meaning everything between these two brackets, all of this will get executed if this is true. If this is false, then all of this gets skipped. So let's do a simple example. Let's say we want to determine if someone gets a senior citizens discount, right? So, some stores they offer a discount if you're a senior citizen. Usually it's like, I don't know, like if you're 65 or older, right? Let's say if you're 65 or older, you get a senior citizens discount, right? So let's write a little program. Let's write a little if statement to determine if you get the discount or not. So let's follow kind of our same format here of an if statement. We'll say if your age, let's start off with an age. Let's say your age is 72, right? Let's just say the age is 72. Actually, better than that, let's have the user enter it for us. So let's get some input from the keyboard. Let's say system.out, print, enter your age. Let the user type in how old they are. Make a scanner. Oops. So let's make some comments. Make a scanner. Show the prompt. Get age. So the age will be whatever they type in, right? Scanner.nextInt. There we go. Determine if they get a discount. Hold on 1 second. Okay. So let's make this bigger. So now we want to determine if they get the discount. And so right here, we've let the user tell us how old they are. We're letting them type in at the keyboard what their age is. But now we need to see if their age is old enough to qualify for the senior citizens discount, right? So we say if their age is greater than or equal to 65, then we'll print out, you get a discount. And here at the end, we'll just print out end of the program, so we kind of know when it's at the end of the program. End of program. All right. So what's going on here? So we're just going to make a scanner to read input from the keyboard. You've already done that. We're going to print out, enter your age. It's just to let the user know what they need to type in. Then we're going to use the scanner to get what their age is. You've already been doing this. And the new part is right here is this if statement. Again, we're going to say if their age is greater than or equal to 65. And that's just because, we're telling ourselves, okay, if you're 65 or older, then you get a discount. So this is saying if you are greater than or equal to 65, you get a discount. This right here is what we call, well, this entire thing is this comparison that I'm talking about if something is true. So you have to ask yourself, age greater than or equal to 65, is that can be something that is true and it can be something that is false, right? So just logically think to yourself, if their age is greater than or equal to 65, if that is true, then we're going to print out, you get a discount. If this is false, meaning let's say their age is 40, you would ask yourself, is 40 greater than or equal to 65? No, that is false. So it will skip all of this code. If they type in 70, think to yourself, is 70 greater than or equal to 65? That is true. So this code does get executed. So what if they are exactly 65? Well, is 65 greater than or equal to 65? That is true. It is greater than or equal to. So 65 is true. So that will get executed. So let's run it. We can put in all these ages. Here we go, enter your age. So if we enter, we're 10 years old, it just goes straight to the end of the program, right? So it skipped over this code because 10 greater than or equal to 65 is false. So it skipped this over and just went straight to the end of the program. Okay, let's enter something bigger. Say there's 77. We type it in. Oh, you get a discount. Well, that's great. Their age was 77. 77 greater than or equal to 65. That is true. So we print out, you get a discount. And then after that, it just continues on with the rest of the program, which this is just printing out, the end of the program. So greater than or equal to 65 is not the only one there is. We have a bunch of them. We have, and it's all your standard math symbols. You can use the less than symbol. Although, in this case, you would probably change this, if they're less than 65, maybe we put, you don't get a discount, right? If they're less than 65. But let's not worry too much about what the code in here is. Let's just look at the different things we can compare. So you have a less than, you can have a greater than, you can have less than or equal to, which looks like that, meaning is the age less than or equal to 65? Okay. You have greater than or equal to, which was the one we were just demonstrating. You can have equals to, and notice I have two equal marks here. That's how you compare if things are exactly equal to each other. You can't use the single equals. As you can see, my IDE, gives me the red squiggly lines. It's telling me there's something wrong. And that's because the single equal marks is used for what they call for assignment. And what I mean by assignment is here where you have a type, a variable, and you're saying that variable is equal to whatever this is. Here, you're not checking if they're equal to each other. You're making it, equal to this. When we do the age, we're not saying true or false, is the age equal to this? No, we're saying the age is this value. We're assigning a value to an age. So here, where you want to check if they're equal to each other, you have to use two equal signs. And then the last one we have is not equal to. It's right here. So let's try out this one with exactly equal. So if we put exactly equal, we'll just print out you are 65, right? Because we're going to let the user type in their age. If the age is equal to exactly 65, we're just going to print out you're 65, right? If we run it. So if we type in 55, it just goes straight to the end of the program, right? We type in 75 or 76, still it just goes straight to the end of the program. All right. Now, if we type in 65, it says you are 65. And that's because this comparison turns out to be true. And so it will execute the code inside of these curly braces. And then, of course, like I said, the last one is the not equal to. And we'll just change this. You are not 65. So if the age is not 65, it'll print out you're not 65. If your age is 65, then that will be false, and it'll skip that code. Show you that. Say 55, it does exactly that. It says you are not 65, right? And of course, if we put 65, it skips. It does not execute this and just goes to the end of the program. Okay, so that allows us to execute some code if something is true. Well, how can we also execute code if it's false? So this is what we call the if statement, but there's kind of a companion statement that goes along with it. That's called the else. Let's change this back to checking if you get a senior citizens discount. So this is going back to, if the age is greater than or equal to 65, we're going to say you get a discount, right? So what if they are not greater than or equal to 65? Let's say, if they're a senior citizen, they get the discount, but if they are not a senior citizen, what do we want to do? Well, that's where the else comes into play. The else is paired with the if statement above it. So what we could do here, we could say system.out.print, you do not get a discount. So if the age is greater than or equal to 65, if that is true, it will execute that code. If this is false, it'll execute whatever is part of the else statement. So the else is just saying, if this turns out to be false, skip this and execute this instead. So let's see that in action. We run it. So if we type in 55, it's going to tell us you do not get a discount, because when we came here, age is 55. So is 55 greater than or equal to 65? That is false. So the false skips this and it does whatever is in else. And that's where we have you do not get a discount. All right, let's run it again. Just do a few examples. This 75. You get a discount. Why? Because this is true. So that gets executed and it skips the else now. because the else only gets executed if this is false. If this is true, it just does the if, skips the rest of it, and just continues on with the rest of the program. Of course, last example, we put in exactly 65. And you still get the discount because this is still true. All right, let's do one more example of this, because there's one more piece that goes with an if statement, and it's called an else if check. So instead of just talking about discount, let's just say you are a senior citizen, right? So I kind of put this else if here in the middle. And so what does this do? So with the if statement, it just checks this first, right? If this is, if this if is true, executes this, and then it will skip the rest of the stuff. Anything else associated with that if statement, it will skip and then continue on here with the program. Now, if this is false, then it'll go down to the next level. The next level says else. But instead of this else without anything else there, this has another condition attached to it, meaning else. So if this is false, we're going to start looking here. Okay, now we're going to check if the age is less than 5. So if the age is less than 5, let's just print you are a child. Actually, I guess let's just change it to 18, right? Else you are an adult. So let's look at it in its entirety and think through what's going to happen with each number. We'll go ahead and run it. And then when we type in a number, we'll kind of go through here and figure out why it prints out what it prints out. So let's say if we type in 20, what do we expect our program is going to print out? Well, it should print out you are an adult. Let's make sure it does, and then we'll explain why. So we put in 20. Yep, it says you are an adult. And how did we get there? So our age is 20. If 20 is greater than or equal to 65, that is false. Skip this, go to the next check. 20 less than 18, that is false. So it skips this. Else, that means none of these other things were true. This will get executed. And that's how we got there with the 20, because this was false. This was false, and so we get down here to the very last else, and this is what we do if nothing else above it was true. All right, let's put in 70. Put in 70. It says you are a senior citizen. Okay, why? Because 70 greater than or equal to 65, that is true. So I do execute this code. And then I skip everything else and then just go on about the rest of the program. Last one, we'll show you it gets in there with a child. So put in 10. It says you are a child. So let's look at it. 10 greater than or equal to 65. That is false. So we skip this and we go to the next check. So 10 less than 18, that is true. So we execute this code, which says you are a child, and we skip everything else. And then we just go on about the rest of the program. So integers are not the only thing you can do this with. You can do it with a float. Of course, instead of next int, you'd put next float. You can do it with a double. That's fine. I'm not going to type through all the example for those, but it works the exact same way. still with the same less thans or equal tos or greater thans and all these things. Works the exact same way for integers, for doubles, and for floats. And for individual characters, you can do that. However, strings work a little bit differently. Strings work differently than probably what you expect them to work. Whenever you compare strings, you have to do them in a special way. And here's how you have to do a string. So instead of age, let's say name. Let's work with some strings here. Name. So instead of typing in their age, we're going to get them to type in their name. This next. So determine if they have a cool name, right? So how do we do that? We can't do that with the, we can't use less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, equals or not equals. You can't do those with strings. Java will let you do it, meaning Java will let me do, if the name is equal to Dan, it's not going to give me a red squiggly that says something's wrong, but you can't do this comparison right there. And if your IDE is smart enough, and the one I use is, it's highlighting it a little bit weird, telling you, there's probably something wrong with this. Java will let you compile it and run it, but it's probably not what you meant to do. And in the case of strings, this is not what you want to do. If you hover over it, it kind of tells you string values are compared using the double equals, not, this equals. And that's because these comparisons, not equals, equals, less than, equals, all of those, you can't do those with strings. If you want to check if a string is a specific value, you have to do it like this. You have to use the variable, which I name my name, variable dot equals, and then the string you want to compare it with. So if those are equal, we'll say you have a cool name, else println you have a lame name, whatever. So let's see if this works. Let's run it. If we type in something that is not Dan, we type in Mike, you have a lame name. Why? Because we were checking if the name is equal to Dan, that's false. So, this is the code that executes the else. Let's run it again. Let's put in Dan. Dan, you have a cool name, because that was true. So it executes this code and skips the rest. Here's a question. What happens if I do this? Notice, actually, let's do it first. Do with a capital D, little a, little n. That kind of Dan, you have a cool name, right? What happens if I put a lowercase d? What's going to happen here? Is that going to be a cool name or a lame name? It is a lame name. And why is that? The Dan is different than Dan. Those two strings are different. Capital D with the little a, little n is different from little d, a, n. Those strings are not equal. So whenever I type in a lowercase d, a, n, I'm checking, is the lowercase d, a, n equal to this uppercase d, a, n? And it's not. They are not the same string. Uppercase and lowercase matter. Likewise, if I put D big A in, that's also lame, because we're checking if it is exactly this right here, this DAN, right? With strings, you can, if you don't care if things are uppercase or lowercase, you just want to check the letter, then you can do, instead of equals, you can do equals ignore case. And what that'll do, it'll, regardless of uppercase or lowercase, it'll just make sure it's the same letter and ignore whether it's uppercase or lowercase. So now when we run this, still, if we put in something else, you know, it's a lame name. If it's something completely different. But if we put in lowercase DAN, it says you have a cool name. We could put in all uppercase DAN. You have a cool name. We could put in big D, little a, big N. You still have a cool name. It's because when we did the comparison, we ignored whether it was uppercase or lowercase, and we're just checking, you know, the letter itself. Is it a D? Is it a D? Is it an N? Is it an N? Without caring if it was uppercase or lowercase. So that's another way you can compare strings. What about this? What if we put that? I mean, it starts with DAN, but it's still a lame name because we're not asking if it starts with this. We're saying, is it exactly equal to that? And you know, in this case, if it is ignoring the case or not. Okay, so that's what there is with if and else statements. And you know, the examples we gave about how to compare integers, how to compare floats, how to compare doubles, and then this is how you compare strings. Like I said, make sure you do not do this right here, because it may work and it may not work. In this case, it does not work. It is a little bit undefined, meaning sometimes when you run the program, it may say true, but most of the time it should just say false. Oh, not say false. It should do your else statement. So even though I typed in the exact text, capital DAN, it does match that exactly, but it still said you had a lame name, and that's because you just can't compare strings with an equal sign. There's a Java reason why, and it's a little bit more advanced than what they go into the class, but a basic version is it's comparing if this object is equal to this object. But in the case of strings, it's not referring to the same variable. And that's kind of the background why, but like I said, a little bit more deep dive than what's appropriate for this class right now. So I'm not going to go do that any further, but just understand you cannot compare strings like this with a double equal mark. You have to use these wherever your variable name is dot equals, or the dot equals ignore case, depending on if you care about uppercase or lowercase letters. Okay, so that's how this, using the if else statements, is how we execute code or not, depending on if something is true or not. Okay, there is one other way to do that as well, and it's called a switch statement. Let me think of a good example why. I'll think of an example in a minute. Let's just say enter a number. So no age or anything, it's just going to be a number. And number scanner dot next int. So we're just going to get a number from the keyboard. A number from 1 to 5. Okay. We want a user to type in a number between 1 and 5. And here we let them type in a number between 1 and 5. Now We want to do something depending on what number they chose, right? So you can do that with an if else, or you can do it with the switch. So let me show you the if else, and then I'll show you how to do it with the switch. So with the if else, we can say if the number is equal to 1. Then we want to print out system.out.println, you picked 1, right? Then we say else, if they put in a 2, we'll say you pick 2. Let's go all the way down, copy and paste a few times. The 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5. So we do, all these if, else, if. And then at the very bottom, we'll have one more final else. And as we talked about before, if all of these are false, then it'll do this final else. So we'll just print out. So we're going to check, did they type in a 1, or did they type in a 2? Did they type in a 3? Did they type in a 4? Did they type in a 5? If all that is false, then we're just going to say invalid number. Because we kind of told them pick a number between 1 and 5. And so we're going to check if they typed in a number 1 through 5. And if they did not, we'll get right here and we'll say you have an invalid number. All right. So that's how you can do it with an if else, or a chain of if else, ifs. All right. So if they type in a 1, hey, you pick 1. And if they type in a 4, hey, you picked a 4. They type in a 5, hey, you picked 5. And if they typed in a 6, it's an invalid number because it's outside. All of these checks turned out to be false. So I'm going to do this instead. A couple more, whatever that number is, it's an invalid number. It'll apply to negative numbers too. If we put -1, it's still an invalid number because we could check if it's a -1 there. That's fine, but we didn't. We only cared about just the normal one. So that's how you can do it with if else statements. Here's what a switch looks like. It looks like this. We use the word switch. Here we put the value we're checking, which is number. So it's not necessarily, we're not saying number equal to 1. We're not saying number equal to 2. We're not saying anything like that. We're just saying, consider this number variable. What is the number equal to? And inside of here, we have what we call cases. We'll say case 1. And then we'll put our brackets, and then we'll put break. And inside of here, we will put, you pick number 1. So what's going on here is when we get to the switch, we're going to say switch on whatever value this is. We're going to say, what is the value of number? And this says, if it is 1, if it is the number 1, print out you picked 1. Guess what the rest of them look like? Yep. Case 2, case 3, case 4, case 5. You picked 2. You picked 3. You picked 4. You picked 5. And then we need to consider, here in our if else's, we had, if the number is equal, if it's this, else if it's this, else if it's blah, blah, et cetera, et cetera. Well, what if it is none of those? If all of these ended up being false, then it just, executes this last else. We can do that here as well with what we call default. And if it's default, we'll say you have an invalid number. So this is what it looks like as a switch statement. So we're going to say, okay, switch, what is the value of number? If this number is 3, then it goes directly here to this case 3 and executes that code, and then continues on with whatever is, after the switch. Here, we'll put back in that in the program, so when we know it, it's getting here, executing other stuff. Okay, so the switch, the variable that we're observing, or that we're looking at, all these cases are saying, what is the value of that number? If that value is 1, then do this. If the value is 2, do this. The value is 4, do this. If the value is none of these, if it is none of those, then we're going to do the default. So let's see that in action. Click the go button. Before you type in a 4, it says you picked the 4. It says it twice, and because we're doing it here in this method, so it got here, and then we're repeating pretty much the same thing when we're doing the switch. So here we got to switch. The number was 4, so it comes and executes this piece of code, which it just prints out you picked the number 4, which is right. Now with the switch, we have all of these consecutive numbers, right? But the thing is, they don't have to be consecutive numbers. I put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's just because in our directions we said enter a number 1 to 5. Okay, let's say, or -1 to exit the program or something. Maybe if they type in a -1, we just want the program to end. Okay, so how can we do that? Well, with our else if, we can add another else if the number is equal to -1, then we're just going to say system.out, println exiting program, and then we'll actually exit the program. Right? So with an else if, you can just put that other check in there, just like that. And you can do the same thing with the switch. And the thing is, with the switch, they don't have to even be in order. All these numbers. It's here. So wait, why is it unreachable? Why does it say that's unreachable? Am I making a mistake here? I don't know. Let's find out if I'm making a mistake. Oh yeah. Tell me that. Let's get rid of the else if. For those listening at home, the reason why it's saying this is unreachable is telling me this code will never be executed. And my IDE is actually smart. It's because if they typed in a -1, it's going to get right here, and the program is just going to exit. The program is going to terminate. So my IDE was smart enough to figure out, okay, if they typed in a -1, the program is going to exit. So nothing else in the rest of the program will get executed. So it will never get here to the switch. And so even if the number was -1, it'll still never get here. All right, it's a little bit smarter than I gave it credit for. So actually, let's just comment this stuff out. Meaning I'm going to ignore the else ifs now. So now we're just going to look at the switch. I do see your question in the comments. I'll get to it in a minute. So let's look at the switch. If we have the case of -1, let's run the program. Of course, if we type in something in the range, you picked 4, and then it gets to the end of the program. Run it again. We type something way out of the range, it's an invalid number. And of course, if we type in a -1, it just exits the program immediately. Notice it did not get here to this print statement. when we did this -1, we printed out we're exiting the program, and then we're using this thing called system.exit, and that just immediately terminates your program. So nothing else will ever be executed. So that's how we can use a switch statement. Like I said, these numbers do not need to be in order. Let's mix up the order a little bit. Does not have to be in order. So notice we put 5, 1, 2, 3, -1, 4. The order does not matter. 2, yeah, still says you picked a 2. Let's run it with a 5. It says you picked a 5. So on and so forth. It works the exact same way, and these case numbers do not need to be in a specific order. Okay, so let me address the comment in the chat. The chat says, how would I code that if I wanted them to enter the number in either format, either the number 1 or the text 1? Is that possible to get the answer in both integer or string? So if we have, let's go back up here. So first of all, right here, we're getting the number as an integer, right? We're saying this int, this number variable is an integer. And then we're going to use our scanner to read an integer. So that will read, if they type in the number 1 like that. We have to use a string variable. Scanner.next. This can read 1 like this, right? Well, let me take those quotes off there, because when you do this, it's not a string. It is the value 1. When you read it like this, you're going to get the string, this ONE, right? And so you have to let the user know what to do. You can't compare, you can't say if number is equal to 1. You can't do that. Why? Because number is an integer, and you're trying to compare it to a string, and that doesn't work. You can't do s equal to 1. You can't do that because this s is a string. It is the string ONE, and you're trying to compare it to the value of 1. Java, and there's no programming language that's going to understand if I type in ONE, then it's the same thing as this value 1. There's no programming language that's going to do that. I mean, what you could do, you could say if s equals ONE, then print you typed in I guess ONE or whatever. But no, I mean, to answer your question, you cannot compare an integer to a string. So yeah, you can't do that unless you want to do the checks like this. You can check if the string they typed in is ONE. That's fine. But you can't check if the string they typed in is equal to the number value of 1. That's not going to work.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
What you can do, I guess, to get along with what you're asking though, is so let's say you have them type in a number. We'll say S. Read whatever they typed in. We can say if the S is equal to ONE, or if the S is equal to a number one like that. You can do that. And why can we, I just got done saying you can't compare a string to a number integer value. That's true. But when we put the quotes around the one, this isn't the number value one. No, this is a string. It just so happens to have the character one as one of the characters in that string. So this might be kind of what you're asking if you can do, and this is how you would do it. These two lines right here in between it means or. So we're saying if this is true, or, we're saying if this is true, or if this is true. You can also have and. It doesn't make sense here, but you can say if that is true and that is true. But in this case that you're talking about right now, you probably want to use the or. So, if we ran this, can't find it. Oh, let's comment out the rest of this. You don't need the rest of this right now. So right now, this is really the only code we're running. Let's run it. There we go. So if we type in ASDF, it just goes to the end of the program. Just prints out the end of the program, right? Because this is not true. Let's run it. If we type in ONE, it's going to tell us you typed in 1 because this right here was true. The rest of it was irrelevant at that point because this part was already true. Let's run it again. If we type in this, it's also going to say you typed in 1 because it said the string you typed in is it ONE. This right here was false. Oh, but we also said or this. And does the string you type in equal to this string 1? And it is. That's what you typed in. So this ended up being true. So this part was false, but this part was true. And with the or, you're only asking, is this true or this true? Well, that is true. So we can print this out. So that's a way that you could be able to support allowing the user to type in, like a number like that or a number like that.
Thank you.
Last thing I'll mention about if-else statements, and that's all there is to a switch. There's nothing else to a switch. We covered everything with the switch. And then we'll do a quick example after we do this one more discussion. So these if-else statements, it's a good way to check if a number is between a certain range. So let's go with the same thing with just having the user type in a number between 1 or 5. Next int, say number. So there's a quick way to determine, using stuff we've already discussed, if a number is in that range, meaning you want to check if the user typed in like a valid number, right? We can say if the number is greater than or equal to 1 and the number is less than or equal to 5. So instead of an or, we're saying and what that means, this has to be true and this part has to be true. Both things have to be true for you to do this code. We'll say a valid number, else print invalid number. This is how we can do a quick check if a number is within a certain range. If the number is greater than or equal to 1 and it's less than or equal to 5. Let's run that. So if we type in a 0, it's an invalid number. Why? Number greater than or equal to 1. So 0 greater than or equal to 1, that's false. If it's false, we can already stop and go to the else. Because this and requires that both parts be true. Since this was already false, we don't even need to consider the rest of it. Just go straight to the else. All right. If we type in a 2, it's a valid number. 2 greater than or equal to 1, that's true. And 2 less than or equal to 5, that is also true. Since both things are true, we execute that code. And finally, last example, we type in 66, it's an invalid number. 66 greater than or equal to 1, that part is actually true. That is true. 66 is greater than or equal to 1. But we have an and 66 less than or equal to 5, that is false. So because both of them were not true, remember we got a true and we got a false, because it's an and, the whole thing becomes false. So we're saying true and false. So we skip this and we just execute the else code. So let's do a little bit of an example. Let's say we have a movie theater and you're going to get movie tickets and you want to figure out how much to charge somebody for the movie tickets. And let's say you have a 2D and a 3D movie. You know, a 2D movie has a certain price, a 3D movie has a certain price. And then if you're a kid, you get a discount, or if you're a senior citizen, you get a discount. So let's take that scenario, right? Let's delete a lot of stuff out here, clean this up. We'll just have our scanner. So prompt. So we'll enter a 2D or 3D movie. We'll start off here by the price of our ticket. We'll have it be a float price. It's going to start off being 0. Right now, we don't know how much to charge them. So we'll just say the price of the ticket starts out being 0. So now we're going to ask them, do you want to see a 2D or 3D movie? So let's say the format as a string. This will let the user type in if it is a 2D or 3D movie. So check movie format. So we say if that format equals, let's do equals ignore case. I like equals ignore case here. If it's a 2D movie, then our price is going to be $10. Else, if the format is a 3D movie, let's say the price is equal to $15. Else, what should I put here? So I'm going to say if whatever they typed in, if it's 2D, that's going to be the price. Else, if it's 3D, that's going to be the price. Well, what if they didn't type in 2D or 3D? We're going to tell them that's an invalid selection. And then we're just going to exit the program. So what we do here, we start off with a price of 0. We ask them, is it a 2D or 3D movie? We let them type in what their selection is. If they typed in 2D, the price is $10. Else, if they typed in 3D, the price is $15. Else, they didn't type in 2D or 3D. We're going to tell them, hey, that's an invalid selection, and we're just going to exit the program. Okay, so let's just print out what we got so far. Your price is whatever the price is. We'll get to the kid discount, senior citizens discount in a minute, but let's just check our price here based on 2D or 3D. So run it. let's say we want a 2D movie, bam, our price is $10. And that's right, because we said if it's a 2D movie, the price is 10. Okay, run it again. We want a 3D movie, bam, the price is $15. And that's right. Let's run it again. And it's a IMAX movie. Well, that's an invalid selection because it's not supported here. Actually, I like IMAX movies. Let's add IMAX support. So we'll also say if it's an IMAX movie, then the price is $25. Those are a lot more expensive. Now let's run it. So 2D still works, it's $10. 3D still works, it's $15. And now IMAX works, it's $25. And now anything else, I know I spelled that wrong, whatever, anything else is an invalid selection. So that works so far. So all these if-else statements allowed us to set the price of a movie based on, if they want to see 2D or 3D or IMAX movie. Okay, well, now let's give it a discount. Determine discount. It's going to be based on their age. So we'll say system.out.print, enter your age. Int age is equal to whatever they type in, scanner dot next int. All right, and so now we can say if the age is less than 7, they get a kid discount. Else, if the age is greater than 65, senior discount. Let's make it less than or equal to. So if they are 7 or younger, they get a kid discount. If they are 65 or greater, they get a senior citizen discount. Else, no discount. Sad face. Right? So how much do we want to charge them if they're a kid? Let's say if they're a kid, they get the ticket half price. So we could just say the price is equal to the price divided by 2. That would give them half off the price. Divided by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by 0.5, right? So we'll do that. So it's a 50% discount, right? So we're saying the price is equal to 50% of the price. If they're senior citizens, say the price is 25. And what are we saying here? They're actually getting a 75% discount because we're saying we want the price of the ticket to be equal to 25% of the ticket. So, that's 75% off because the price is only going to be at 25% of what the price is. Okay. And so if there's no discount, no needed computation. And why is that? Is because we already set what the price is. And if there's no discount, then that we don't need to add or subtract anything from the price. Right? So now let's print out the price with these things. We run it. There we go. Let's say we want a 2D movie. A 2D movie, remember, it means it's $10. It's $10. So now if I'm 4 years old, then the price is $5. Is that correct? Well, it's a $10 for 2D movie. The kid gets us 50% off, and so the price will be $5. Note, this is where you should be doing test tables, by the way. Test cases to make sure your program is giving you the right answer. Right? Say a 2D movie for a senior citizen. It tells us the price is $2.50. Is that right? So if a 2D movie is $10 and senior citizens only pay 25% of that, if you do the math, that's correct. Now, if we want to do a 2D movie as just an adult, well, you pay the full price, you pay the full $10. let's do one more example of it. Let's say we want an IMAX movie as a kid. It says it's $12.50. Is that right? Okay, well, IMAX movie is $25. And then I'm a kid, so I only pay half of that. I only pay, $12.50, which that gives us the right answer. So this is how we can use if-else statements to determine the price of a movie ticket, depending on, what format, 2D, 3D, or IMAX, and based on how old you are. This is, the kind of code that is run in real life, right? Somebody that made software for a movie theater had to write code like this. Maybe it was in Java, maybe not. Maybe it was in C, maybe it was in Python. There are many programming languages, but all programming languages have this concept of getting in, printing stuff, getting input from the user, if-else statements, and the same thing, and doing computations. So somebody wrote code not too different from this to determine the price of a movie ticket. So when you go to the movie theater, you can think about these things. You can think about the software running on the register, that determines what you got to pay. Or, I guess like we do it nowadays, just ordering it on your smartphone. On that server that your smartphone is connecting to, somebody wrote some code not too different from this that determined how much you got to pay for your ticket. So this is kind of real life, real world examples. Obviously greatly simplified, but kind of the same concept going on with these if-else statements. Okay, so that's all the material for this week. If-else statements, a little bit of the switch stuff, and that's it. For your assignment, you kind of got to apply some of the stuff we did right here. You got to have the user type in two numbers, and then have them, do a plus minus, multiplication and division symbol. And then using those two numbers they typed in, and then using, did they type in a plus? Did they type in a minus? Did they type in a divide? Did they type in a multiply? Whatever symbol they put in, you want to do that math operation. That's what we've done right here. Here we did, if the format equals 2D, do this. Well, in your assignment, you would be, if whatever they typed in is equal to a plus sign, then do addition. Else, if they typed in a minus sign, do subtraction. Else, if they typed in a multiply sign, do multiplication. So on and so forth. That's kind of how this relates to your assignment. Okay, so a couple of admin notes. Just a reminder that you can turn in assignments whenever you want. You can work as far ahead on assignments as you want. However, I won't actually grade an assignment until the day after its due date. So even if you want to start working on assignment 6, you can work that and turn it in if you wanted to, if you want to work that far ahead. But I'm not going to grade it until we actually get to when that assignment is actually due. Second is just a reminder that you can turn in previous assignments to have them regraded. So if you did poorly on an assignment, or if you do poorly on this assignment and you get your grade back and you're not happy with your grade, you can go in, fix your mistakes, and have it resubmitted. However, late point penalties would apply to that resubmission. You can look in the syllabus, and you can look on course announcements that I've posted for what the late penalty policy is. But I mean, if you did pretty poorly on an assignment, if you go back and fix all your stuff and resubmit it and get everything right, you can still do better than if you had, even with late point penalties, you can still get a better grade than if you did, fairly poorly on an assignment. As you can probably see from what the feedback you received for your assignment last week, I do grade very strictly. That's how I operate all of my classes. Grading will be done strictly off of what the assignment says to do. So do what the assignment tells you to do. I grade fairly, but it is strictly. And if you feel that I made a mistake on the grading, you're more than welcome to bring it to my attention, and I will relook at it and explain it to you further if you have any questions about why you may have missed some points for something. Okay, yep, that's it. I'll go ahead and open it up for questions.
So I just started using this software and I was unfamiliar with how I'm supposed to convert this into a file so I could turn it in for like my assignment and discussions. Could you go through a tutorial of that?
Looks like Adriana may be trying to ask a question. I see your microphone moving, but I don't hear any audio. I'm not sure if it's on your side or my
Okay.
side. But I definitely don't hear anything coming from you.
Dang. Oh, you
All right,
hear
somebody
me?
else said they can hear you. Give me 1 second. There must be maybe there's an audio setting on my side I need to change to be able to hear you. Give me 1 second. And look at my audio options. If I can find my audio options. Just stand by like 1 minute while I find my audio options.
Okay.
Can you try to ask your question now?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, I got you now.
Okay, so I just downloaded this software and I was unfamiliar with how to like convert it into a file so that I could upload it to the discussion. Could you show me how to do that or?
By software, you mean like this IDE that I'm using now?
Yes, the IDE.
Yep. Okay. So, over here you have like the source file. I've been working in this main file right here, right? So I think you can right click it. There's 2 things you can do. So if you go into your folders, let me find where I have this saved at. So right now I have it on my desktop. Oh, you can't see what I'm clicking on. Give me 1 second. Let me share the rest of my screen. Okay, where's my screen share? Yep, should be that one. All right, you should be able to see the rest of my screen. So yeah, I have my IDE here. And so this is the folder where I made this. So whenever you go through and create like a project, it'll ask you, where do you want to save it at or whatever. So this is the place on my computer where I saved it. I just saved it on my desktop in these folders. So if I go in here, this is what the files start looking at. So if you go into this SRC folder, right there will be all the files that you're creating in there. So that's that main.java file. So I could if I just open that like Notepad or something, there it is. That's all the stuff that I've been typing in and working with. So you'll be able to grab just that main.java file or whatever you name it and just upload that file. Eventually we'll get to where you're uploading multiple code files, but they should all be listed there.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you so much.
No problem. I see a hand up. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Professor. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, I was just about to say if Adriana cannot figure it out, I can help her if she wants later. She can write me on the class list, and I can help her to show her the directions.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
If your hand's still up to ask another question, you're free to ask whenever you want. All right, nothing yet. I'll stay around about one more minute and then we'll cut off. Just a reminder, I know sometimes this goes by pretty quickly, but just like last time, I'll get the recorded video posted up a little bit later today, so you can go back and review it whenever you feel like it. But stand by about one more minute, and then we'll wrap it up. All right, I'll go ahead and shut it down. It's a beautiful day here. I hope it is where you are. Everybody enjoy the rest of your weekend, and email me directly if you need any help or assistance, and I can usually get back to you pretty quickly. So everyone enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. You too.